All right, sorry that was a bit loud, bit aggressive. Let's calm it down. Today's video is about lesbians, AKA your favorite topic, favorite theme of videos for me to post on this channel. I'm not even gonna dilly-dally, let's just jump straight into this. Do all lesbians think the same? They don't. But there might be themes that are quite similar across the board. And I'm really keen to find out what those are. But just a little bit of dilly-dallying to say thank you to my most worthy patrons. God, all of my patrons honestly you are the backbone of this channel. I'm not even sure I need to be here. You guys keep this shit show running. I can't thank you enough. If you would like to become a patron, there are tiers for as low as $3 a month. Depending on what membership you choose, you can get your name listed in every video. There's bonus content. I think I'm gonna do a whole lesbian reactions video just for TikTok. I mean, a whole TikTok lesbian reactions video just for Patreon. You can get the low budget shit show t-shirt, which is only available to patrons. You can't buy it, but you can buy things from my clothing brand Riff Supply Co, which if you're a patron, you also get discounts to. The higher the tier, the higher the discount. Rift tote bags that come with a zip so you don't have your shit falling out everywhere. This has completely saved me while traveling. My wallet, my cameras, everything goes in here, and I know it's not gonna disappear. So they're the two best ways to support the channel other than just subscribing and being here, which is also deeply valued and appreciated as usual. Welcome back everyone to the low budget shit show. Okay, dilly-dallying is over. Let's get...
Scissoring is a real thing.
Okay, we're starting out in the deep end. Okay, that's pretty much it. What I expected.
Scissoring. It's not what you think.
It's probably not. That is the split I probably would have expected from that question. It's a shockingly polarizing question for some reason. Talk to a lesbian for once. Like,
I have fallen for a straight best friend.
oh, the classic. Oh. Okay. Okay, that is kind of the opposite to what I would have thought, because the whole like falling for your straight best friend trope is also very heavily discussed. Oh.
Depending on who watches this. I mean, okay, depending on who watches this person might already know or might not know. You can't help who you fall in love with. My problem was knowing but not being able to tell anyone or doing anything about it. So like literally going home every night crying and like, why am I like this? How can I change? But especially growing up in a small town where there's really no queer people.
Yeah, that's rough. The small town thing. Hashtag not all small towns, but a lot of them. Quite insular, quite just not exposed to the reality of the wider world with certain things. With other things, like people that live in the wider world aren't obviously exposed to things people from small towns are. Generally in small communities, especially like in conservative areas, having any kind of knowledge or understanding of the nuances of sexuality, like, not their strong suit.
I think when I was younger, I was like obsessed with my best friends, specifically like girl best friends, where
that is a big, that's a big part of, I think, a lot of gay women in particular, like their development, their upbringing, their just experience, especially through like high school, is just having such a good best friend. Everyone kind of thinks that you're dating. In hindsight, were you maybe dating? For all intents and purposes, yeah.
But I placed a lot of like the love feelings that I wanted on them without knowing what it was.
Yeah.
It never happened, even like long ago. I was always dating girls who were not straight.
Had a lot of internalized homophobia, and all my friends were always queer growing up since like elementary school.
Internalized homophobia with a largely queer friendship group is not something I've really heard of. Good to know.
I've lost a lot of friends for coming out because it's like, oh, like McKaylee, she's a lesbian, she likes me. No, that's not how it is. My very attractive best friends that are just my friends and are like this.
Yeah, oh God, so many good points in what the first 2 minutes. The falling for the best friend, the not knowing if you're in a really close friendship or a kind of a relationship, not identifying it as a relationship, and then your friends not being your friends because they think you're attracted to them. Oh, what a great conversation.
Scissoring is a
And
real
now we're
thing.
on to scissoring.
3, 2, 1.
If you have an hour this week, you can learn 100 songs on the piano by learning just 4 chords.
I don't want to.
Some people, especially, you know, maybe cis men that fetishize lesbians, will see porn and they're doing things that like, you don't do. Like, that's not something you do. But it is real, and I mean,
it's not something men do, which doesn't make it any less valid or enjoyable for women. I know we're having such a good discussion, but I was looking at the time on my computer, which is Australian time. So I gotta get the hell out of here and get to the airport. We'll continue this in Malaysia. Okay, we are not in fact in Malaysia. We are in Sri Lanka now. Don't know what happened. I blacked out and now we're here. Where were we up to?
Scissoring is a real thing.
Oh, we were talking about scissoring, that's right.
But it is real, and I mean, it's validating people that do it, but it's also like, it's not what you really think. Scissoring, it's not what you think.
I would agree. I think there is so much speculation and just confusion about scissoring that I just feel like if you're a cis straight male, like why are you weighing in on scissoring at all?
It's like see it to believe it. I've done it, so I believe that it is real.
Exactly. That's what I don't get. I know maybe it's just like a semantics thing or like a wording. The fact that you're talking about it, the fact that there is something to talk about, obviously it's fucking real. Like, what do you mean?
I don't know. I've heard that it kind of works, and then I've also heard that absolutely not. They just won't do it. It does not happen.
But that's the thing. That doesn't make it not real. That makes it not certain people's preference.
If you enjoy it, it's real. You like kissing,
Thank
it's
you.
real.
Thank you.
You like scissoring, it's real.
Thank
I'm
you.
saying, like, there's no like rule book of like how to be intimate with someone.
I think the better question is scissoring something you enjoy? Then we'd have all forms of the spectrum. But is scissoring real? There is literally only one answer to that question. Some people hate coriander. Some people froth it. But no one is arguing, is coriander real?
I have never had sex with a man.
I've never had sex with a man.
There's no middle ground.
We got some.
I think it's yes or no, right? Well, I guess it is like a yes or no question.
I've only been with one man who just so happened to be trans. That was enough for me to be like, this is not me. Also, the whole thing with gold stars, I feel it's not great. Gold stars should not mean anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with that. I can see how it would invalidate people who have slept with a man, because obviously like heteronormativity is a huge thing. I would guess that most lesbians grew up thinking they're straight just because from birth, and I genuinely do mean from birth, society, your parents, your family, your friends, media, toys, everything aimed at you from the moment you exit the womb says if you're a woman you end up with a man, if you're a man you end up with a woman, and that's it. That's your two options. So obviously there are a lot of lesbians growing up being in relationships with men, marrying men, realizing later that there is another option and they are lesbians or any other identity.
I tried multiple times and I was like, something ain't clicking. Like, isn't sex supposed to be amazing? And then I had it with a woman and I was like, oh, got it.
The tale as old as time.
I came out when I was 29 and I was about to be engaged to a man.
Tale as old as time.
I had to be real with myself and really had to be like, if I don't come out now, I'm gonna be 50 with a child and married. Coming out.
Which is fucking heartbreaking, man. And I really feel for like the older generation who didn't have like the social movements and all that and the acceptance that we have now. I'm not saying it's perfect, it's not. But all of those people could be like stuck in marriages, have kids, be with a husband or wife that they're not attracted to, like potentially in families, and families they love, but like still stuck in that situation and can't get out.
I was super Christian, and so I just was not doing sexy things at all, which is a bummer. I like wish I would have had sex with men. It's gone now, ring on the finger, I'm moving forward. I don't know, sounds like it's not all cracked up to be from over there. I don't know.
Okay, I actually haven't heard that point of view before, ever.
I've been like a tomboy like my whole life, and like I've always viewed like my guy friends as my guy friends, and like I didn't know that like in elementary, like one of my guy best friends had a massive crush on me because I was like, oh, that's the bro, you feel me? Yeah, like I've just always had friends and it's never been more than that.
A little silly that like I'm standing on this line and imagining the comments already of people being like, well, how do you know that you're lesbian if you didn't try it with a guy?
Yes.
They can shut up.
And I'm like,
They can shut up.
And the thing is, it's so easy to switch that around, but they don't have the mental fortitude or forethought, consciousness to just switch that question and answer it for yourself. Like if you're a cis man and you've ever asked a lesbian, or how do you know if you've never had sex with a man? How do you as a cis straight male know that you're not gay if you've never had sex with a man? It's the same question, reversed.
it's like, well, I would never ask a straight person that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
yeah, and no one ever asks no one is ever going up to straight people being like, well, how do you know that you're not a lesbian if you've never had sex with a woman? No one's asking that because it's invasive, it's invalidating, and it's assuming that you know more about that person's identity than that person does, who has lived with themselves and their identity their entire lives.
Gay men are more privileged than lesbians.
Gay men are more privileged than lesbians. I would say, oh, that's a hard one actually. Yeah, that's pretty mixed, and I see how. My first instinct is yes, because men generally, regardless of race, regardless of whatever, men are always at the top of the totem pole, privilege-wise. But on the other hand, because of that exact same thing, lesbians and like bisexual women are often just sort of like whatever, just disregarded. It's almost like they're able to receive sometimes in certain situations, all of this with a grain of salt by the way, it's almost like they're able to receive less discrimination because people just disregard and overlook women being attracted to women as an identity altogether. Like that's not valid, attraction to women doesn't matter, and they just kind of like leave it at that, or they fetishize it, in which case the act of sexualizing someone's identity allows them to sort of overlook whatever disgust they have in homosexuality, whereas the inverse doesn't. Mozzie. The inverse doesn't really exist for gay men. Hard question, let's see what they say.
I feel like women being on the queer spectrum at all is like less legitimate to some people than like men saying that they're on the queer spectrum.
Yeah, that is a much more eloquent way of saying what I was trying to say.
A lot of people refer to me or other women in my life as like, it's a phase. Oh, you'll get over it, it's a phase. But like, I don't really see that happening with men.
Yeah, and I almost feel like, again, with like the just disregarding and invalidating women's attraction to women, it's easy to do. Whereas like a gay man being gay is almost like an insult and an attack on masculinity as a whole. Like some people take it that way. I can't think of like an eloquent, easy to understand way to say what I mean, but like masculinity as a whole is upheld to such a stringent degree that any affront to it is kind of met with so much hostility and violence in a lot of cases. So a man being gay is just a huge problem and a threat to masculinity as a whole in a way that lesbians are not a threat to femininity. If anything, lesbianism is the peak of femininity. So that's a bit of a tangent. I think the point that she's more making is that like if you say you're a lesbian, everyone's like whatever, like that's clearly optional and you'll be with a man at some point, whereas if you say you're a gay man, like you are a gay man. Whereas again, any sexuality that does not involve men is seen as something that needs to be fixed or changed, or something that is a phase or it's not valid. God, so I'm just still confused. I don't know which one is more privileged because there's just two angles to it. Let's see what they say.
I can't even tell you how many times I've been with my partner and like, oh, that's your friend? By my own parents. Oh,
yeah.
How your friend doing? What do you mean, how's my friend doing? You know I don't do this with my friends.
I'm related with the amount of times I've like visibly kissed my partner on the lips in public and then had somebody come up to me like, you're really close with your sister.
Oh,
and I'm like, excuse me?
Oh, like you guys are really good friends. You're really good friends. Like incest is the more palatable and likely option than lesbianism. Like that's genuinely what some people think. What?
I've known people where it's like, oh, I'll tell my kids about lesbians, but not gay men. Like they can't see that because for a lot of men, they fetishize lesbians in a way, so it's more approachable for them. Gay men, they're like, oh no, like, you know, like the F slur, all that stuff, like very aggressive towards them. So I feel as if it is easier to come out as a lesbian to some people.
I would agree with that, and I have come across people that they're like, oh, I'm okay with lesbians, but like not gay men. I'm not homophobic, but because I like lesbians, but not gay men. I'm like, well, that doesn't mean what you think it means.
Probably be the opposite. I'm Mexican, and my dad, one time he got Brokeback Mountain without knowing what it was about. He was like, oh yeah, sometimes two men fall in love. And then when I came out to him, it was like the most disgusting thing to him. And like a man not being present is kind of just fed into like the machismo in my culture. So that's why I would strongly agree.
I guess that kind of relates to what I was speaking on about masculinity, but kind of from an opposite direction. That's really interesting.
People get to cherry pick what part of queer culture they want. Cis women kissing each other at parties and, oh, that's so cool, that's so ha 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 quirky in a sense of hate and hate crime. You're a lot more to take a double take at two men holding hands than you are at two women holding hands.
Once again comes back to masculinity and the patriarchy. Like male friendships, irrespective of sexuality, are not really allowed to be as affectionate or close, or the whole thing with men not being allowed to talk about their feelings, not being allowed to show emotion, and all the pushback that comes from doing any of those things. Whereas female friendships, you're allowed to be affectionate, you're allowed to cuddle, you're allowed to hold hands, you're allowed to like be close in a way that could look romantic. So I guess that is a privilege that comes with two like queer women, in the sense that you maybe can hold hands or be affectionate, blah blah blah, and people just look past it because they might confuse it for a friendship. But in saying that, double-edged sword, that also is used to invalidate the relationship as a whole. So is it a privilege?
I have damaged relationships with my loved ones because of my sexuality.
I immediately hate the wording of that. If your relationships with your loved ones have been damaged because of your sexuality, it's not you who has damaged them. You can't damage a relationship just by being who you are. Someone else not liking who you are and damaging the relationship can damage it. But you just existing and someone else having an issue with that, that is not on you. I don't love that. I don't love the wording of that, but let's see where this goes.
I feel like my relationship, like, with my parents has kind of shifted it since I came out. I have no regrets, like, and even though they're a little hesitant, like, I have one of my guy best friends. He's like, "You sure you don't want to date Sean? Like, he's so nice for you." I'm like, they don't get it. It's still that disconnect, because I do wish they reacted a little bit better to it. But there's nothing I could do about it. At the end of the day, I still love who I am, and I'm not going to change myself for even my parents.
Good, and again, it's the parents that are choosing to behave like that. So if there is damage to the relationship as a whole, that's the parents' fault for not fully accepting it and not like coming to terms with it and still thinking, oh, maybe you can date Sean.
I had kind of a rocky relationship with my dad. He was very angry when I came out, and now he's at a place where he has told me, like, I accept that you're gay and I accept that you're going to be with a woman. He's like, I just had a vision of what your life was going to pan out to be, and you kind of just threw that off. He tells me he accepts me, but it's just going to take time for him to acclimate to being around my partner.
I think that situation is the most common out of all situations, in my opinion. Most parents, especially parents of like my generation and older, have this vision of you're going to get married to the opposite sex, you're going to get a house, you're going to have 6 billion grandkids, you're going to blah blah blah, white picket fence. First of all, the house, the kids, all of that, completely out of reach these days. Thanks to the economy. So it's not just the sexuality that they're going to have to let go of for the vision of their kids, but it's almost like a breakup. Like when you break up with someone, you aren't just breaking up with you aren't just dealing with the separation of the person, you're dealing with the fact that all of these hopes and dreams and plans that you had with this person for the future don't exist anymore and aren't going to happen. So I feel like that's almost harder to deal with than the reality of the situation sometimes. I really do think these days the most common outcome is exactly what she said. Maybe it takes some time to get used to it, but most parents, or at least just like a good amount of parents, will eventually choose their kid over whatever fucking gripe they have with homosexuality. And I'm personally of the belief that you should have the grace, if you can, if you're able to. Obviously every circumstance is different, but you should have the grace to give your parents or anyone in your life the time to get used to it, because for some people it can be a huge change. For some people it comes with undoing decades or an entire lifetime of beliefs that have been reaffirmed every single day. So like, have the patience, have the grace to give the person the time that they need to unlearn those things and get used to this new normal, because more often than not it's not going to happen overnight, and that's okay. That would be a big ask, to be like, hey, I know you grew up with X, Y, and Z, and I know your entire life has just been this unquestioned path of heterosexuality and all of these things, but you need to change that today, and if you don't, then you're a bad parent. I don't think that's fair. So.
I was been very blessed. My family's very accepting. They've always knew. So when I came out, they're like, okay, very lucky. But I feel so bad saying that after that. I'm like,
We love that.
What do you mean?
I'm like, I'm gonna stay quiet.
I can see how some people can find it unhelpful when people are like, oh, everything was fine for me. But I think it's also good to tell the stories of families and friends just not caring and it just being a complete non-event.
You feel safe around your parents which is what a lot of people don't have, and hopefully you're gonna carry that onto your kids if you decide to have any. But hopefully, like, you'll get to share that with other people.
Exactly.
So don't feel bad. I mean, it's a good thing. We're
Yeah.
happy for you.
No, I know.
Exactly.
I'm like,
It's a blessing.
yeah, definitely.
This is really cute. What a lovely video. I didn't expect to have an emotion today, but here we are. All right, that felt like a really nice video. Took 2 countries to make, but we got there in the end. So leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe if you like it here, but look after yourselves. Don't leave the window open in a country that has a lot of mosquitoes. And I'll see you in a few days with a new video.